then we've got our meeting at 3, right? We've got Smart City.
Yes, you're going to be at that. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yes. Okay. To know these. I really would like to talk to you about decision, and I know they're waiting to officially pass so that you know. So you can maybe talk about it because otherwise
Sure.
preparing a letter because I said they need an organizing situation. And the question is, do we wait until our board meeting, which is January 23rd, to have that confidential, and do them in front because they want to have a formal announcement, but they don't want to read our board members. And so it's a little bit complicated because
We're allowed to send you camera documents ahead of time, aren't we? Or are we not?
they're very good at getting it out far ahead of time. So I think we need to distribute. Anyway, we'll talk. I'm sure myself and Daphne talk to Bill. So it's just the issue is how can you get Rob to get a quote?
Yep. You think we're going to wear them?
No, but I don't.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wish to welcome everybody to our regular meeting of council, the first one in 2018. Wish everyone a happy new year. We acknowledge we're on the lands of the traditional territories of the coast and Straits Salish people, and we specifically recognize the Lekwungen speaking people, known today as the Songhees and the Esquimalt, and that their historic connection to these lands continue to this day. We are being video recorded tonight, and it will be archived. So we have an agenda before us, so I would like a motion to do two things, please. To accept the amended agenda, which adds number 14, a DVP item, and then secondly, that we amend the agenda by bringing forward item number 8, and we deal with that off the top.
So moved.
Seconded.
Seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. We've amended the agenda to accommodate the chair of the Greater Victoria Public Library, because I know Councillor Martin has a meeting which starts probably now in Colwood, so you're already late, and we'll try not to keep you late. So I wish to welcome the team from the public library, and as I said, Colwood councillor, now chair of the of the library, and succeeding our councillor, Councillor Murdoch. I wish to welcome you here, and Maureen Sawa is here, the CEO, and I think you might want to identify others. And I welcome you here. I know there's a presentation that you're going to make, so thank you very much. And I think it's a given that, particularly here in Oak Bay, that the Greater Victoria Public Library is an essential element in our community. We're some, if not the highest per capita users or per square foot users, and it's certainly very much a part of our community. So I don't know who's going to speak first. Oh. Yes, welcome, Chair Martin.
Thank you.
Oh,
okay.
I have
technology. Other duties as assigned.
Well, thank you. Well, that's great. This is. I appreciate this, and thank you, Mayor. Thank you for having us here. Council, I appreciate it as well for taking the time to listen to us tonight to present to you our 2018 budget. Staff, we appreciate the input that we've received from you in the past, and I'd just like to welcome or thank you for having us as well. You've already heard who I am, and as well, I'd like to introduce Maureen Saba, who is our CEO. In addition, we also have Paul McKinnon, who is our new Director of Finance and Facilities. And then beside him, we have Jennifer Windecker, who is Director of Public Service. And then Helen Hughes, who is our President of QP 410.
Welcome.
I would like to, first of all, recognize Kevin. As you've heard, Kevin was our past chair, and Kevin has been hugely helpful to me, and I've appreciated the advice that I've got from Kevin as I've sort of taken on this role. We also appreciate all the work that all the councillors and citizen reps do with the library board. We really appreciate and value the opinions and the diversity that we're able to have at that table. As modern technology continues to give rise to unprecedented change, the community needs libraries more than ever. And I think you've already heard that from the mayor, how important libraries are in your community. You've received our final package for 2018. The library and board and staff have worked very hard to develop a budget for 2018 that is realistic and resourceful. I would like to express my thanks to this council for your continued support. By increasing the accessibility and impact of library services, the Greater Victoria Public Library is living up to its vision, your place to connect, discover, and imagine. And now I'd like to turn it over to Maureen, who will actually do the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Who's a little bit shorter. A lot bit shorter.
I watched. No, I didn't. There you go.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, it's okay. All right, I'll just go. Okay. All these contractions. Anyway, thank you very, very much. It's just such a pleasure to be back here again, and Happy New Year, everyone. This is 2018, and in 2017, we embarked on the second year of our strategic plan. As you can see, our key themes were create, engage, inspire, and lead. You know, there were so many things that I kind of wanted to pack into this slide presentation tonight, but I know that time is short, so I'm going to focus on some key deliverables for you. This is a kind of a list of numbers that we put together, GBPL by the numbers. Now, the numbers that you see on the screen are actually our 2016 total figures, just because at the time of putting this together, we haven't finalized 2017. But as you can see, the library system activity continues to be demonstrative that we are, as the mayor has said, we are the highest per capita circulating library system in Canada, according to the Canadian Urban Library Council stats, which is really quite a testimony to the commitment to reading and learning, not just in Oak Bay, but in the entire Greater Victoria Public Library system. Some preliminary statistics for 2017 include things that we had. Our total visits are projected to be 7,265,000. We are up from 6 million. Like it's a significant increase in terms of visits. Now, this includes in-person visits and e-visits. So, you know, the use of our e-site has gone up quite a bit. Certainly in terms of Oak Bay, you do continue to be one of the high users for our system, and we're very, very pleased with the results. The annual branch visits that you had this year were almost 15% of the system total, which is quite significant. Oak Bay continues to be one of the busiest branches in the system. Every month, over 27,200 people visit the branch and check out close to 50,000 items. You're second only to the central branch downtown in terms of overall busyness, so this does continue. We thought we'd just kind of focus a little bit on the four key priorities for our strategic plan, and you may recognize Councillor Murdoch in this picture. This is from our Summer Reading Club, a VIP visit. We inspire learning for people of all ages, and it really does begin with our youngest readers.
Oak Bay has one of the highest participation rates for a summer reading club in the entire system. And it's just delightful that we've been able to promote that further through community outreach with many of the schools, Willows Elementary, Margaret Jenkins Elementary, Oaklands Elementary, St. Michael's University School, Oak Bay High School. Our staff, as Jennifer can attest, are out and about quite a bit. We've really ramped up our outreach activities. The other thing that this year we wanted to talk about was how we've been leading in terms of virtual service. We introduced a new website this year, and this gives you a kind of a screenshot of one of the most latest versions. This is a mobile-friendly website that we launched in August 2017, and essentially it's a new branch. It's like a virtual branch for the entire system. It was developed in-house, features a new learning platform. I think you may have heard that we introduced lynda.com as a new resource, streaming music collection. You can now apply for your library card online, and it's much more responsive in terms of handheld devices. As you know, that's the way of the world is kind of your personal mobile devices, and our earlier website just wasn't all that friendly. We're very proud of this because it was developed in-house, and for a budget of approximately $20,000, and I'm told by board members and others that comparable redesigns of websites are costing well into the $100,000. So we're very proud of the staff and the ability that they have to do in-house development. We continue to play such an important role in bridging the digital divide with technology, public space, and staff expertise. So again, as you all know, at Oak Bay Branch, our public computer usage includes adaptive stations, teen internet stations, children's stations, and there's an average of about a monthly public computer usage, 103. I can't even read this number. Anyway, it's quite extensive. It's quite exhaustive. A lot of one-on-one computer assistance twice a week. We do a number of sessions for personal kind of prompting. What we've been able to do also this year, if you haven't been in the Oak Bay branch lately, but I'm sure you all have, we've made some substantive improvements in terms of meeting our goal to create beautiful community spaces for people to enjoy. We've recently enhanced the children's area of the Oak Bay branch, and as you can see by this photograph, we've been able to kind of move things around, make it a more inviting, child-friendly, family-friendly area. And we invested in some new furniture to include a new children's table and updated shelving for board books and paperback picture books. We were getting some feedback that, we had so much material in that area, and those of you who have small children, sometimes if you're not familiar with the organization, you couldn't always find things very well, and we did have some feedback from some grandparents that were saying, we want to get some books and materials for our children. We're not quite, this isn't all that intuitive, and it was really helpful to get that feedback because, in fact, they were right. We had kind of built up the collection to such a degree that it was getting a little hard to work around it. So the accessibility has increased quite dramatically, and again, the staff are getting lots of positive feedback. Lots more to come in 2018 that I can tell you about if we have time at the end. The other thing that we're very proud of is just how we engage communities to expand our reach and impact. And here's a picture of a program that we did recently that the mayor was involved with in terms of supporting a strong reading culture in the Oak Bay community. This is a program that we've been working with Oak Bay Archives, and the Oak Bay branch have joined together in a new initiative to present local history programs. So a number of kind of local authors and genealogists are involved with this. Another highlight program that you might be interested in is a collaborative program with the University of Victoria Institute on Aging and Lifelong Health and Self-Management, and we were able to do some chronic pain self-management programs out of the Oak Bay branch in 2017. So what we really are aiming to do is, again, have a very robust kind of reading resource service, but it's more than that. It's how do people learn, how do people kind of connect ideas and meet their information needs. So having said all that, we talk about, the actual budget. This year, as before, there are some key drivers, but this year in particular, we are looking at negotiated salaries and benefits that have not yet been determined, but we are going to be dealing with that. Our building occupancy costs continue to rise, and unfortunately, although it's good for patrons, our fine revenue is decreasing. And you've heard me say this before, it's because our customer service is so good that you get reminders to return books, and the increasing usage of e-materials means that you are not penalized for returning anything late, because it essentially just vaporizes. You know, like if you've read it you've hit your 3-week mark and then it's gone, so you don't have to worry about bringing it back. But at the same time, we continue to have such an incredible use of our physical materials, and actually circulated 655,000 digital materials across the system. So our usage rate continues to go up, but again, it's not in physical materials. As I mentioned, our usage overall continues to be very high, but at the same time, that requires increased kind of investment in such things as software and licensing, and this is again compounded by the US dollar. So these unavoidable costs do go hand in hand with the improved service. We did quite a lot of work in 2017 with Truth and Reconciliation, call to action, and the board was extremely keen on the library looking at this is not just a 2017 one-off, like the commitment that we've made in terms of classification, what they call decolonization of classification subject headings, and programs such as the one we did that was funded by Victoria Foundation to improve understanding and work with our Indigenous partners to provide information to the public. So, all of this has kind of contributed to our busyness. But again, as we always like to talk about, we are extremely frugal and efficient. So we do have a number of budget savers that we realized in the last year. One of the things that we work on very hard is realigning of space and staff to meet changing user needs while maximizing our existing staff complement. We had an administrative center that we were leasing space on Fort Street for 3 years, and we've moved those staff back into the central library, thus saving quite a considerable amount in terms of leasing costs. We were able to relocate our servers to the University of Victoria Center, which is much safer and secure than the old location that we had in the central library, which is one of the reasons we moved out to Fort Street. So by taking a little bit more time to explore, we can offset our costs. Decreasing costs of hardware, again, thanks to the expertise of our IT staff, it's kind of countered the increases in software to a point. And also, I think I've talked to you about this before, our floating collections means that the entire system, benefits from the investment that all 10 municipalities have made into our collections. So as you know, we're opening a new branch in James Bay in a couple of months, and that will further increase our stock, so to speak, to share amongst the systems. So that kind of collaboration really serves us well. So, I think the idea of efficiencies, innovation, and collaboration is something that is very much the priority of the library board. And again, thanks to our staff, we've been able to deliver on that. So in your package, you do have our 2018 budget submission. It is aligned with our strategic plan and corresponding business plan. We've requested an overall 2.90% budget increase, which is pretty much in line with what we asked for last year. We've worked very hard to keep the increase as minimal as possible because we're aware of the pressures and financial realities of all of our municipal partners. I have to say again, and I think Councillor Murdoch and Councillor Martin can certainly speak to that, since they both speak on they sit on our finance committee. The finance committee is extremely scrupulous, and I think the budget, preparation this year was one of the tightest, and we kind of went back and forth on about 3 or 4 different iterations to kind of get it down to the level that it's at right now. So we are hopeful that, as things progress in this year, we'd really like to look at expanding our Sunday hour service to all year round. As you know, we're open on Sundays from October until the end of April, and the feedback we have from community users is they'd really like to see us open year-round. So that's something that, again, we're looking at service model options that might allow us to do that. So this budget is kind of a maintenance budget. It supports equitable access to services and programs that, as you know, make a difference to the lives of residents in Oak Bay and the Greater Victoria area. The contribution for Oak Bay in 2018, per capita rate increase in 2017 was 6.43%, and in 2018 the rate is 6.88%. And in a couple of minutes, I'll ask Paul McKinnon to join me here, because I know you might have some questions about this year's percentage increase, and it does all relate to the formula and property assessments. So finally, in conclusion, a librarian is nothing if she doesn't have a good quote or two. So this one is one of my very favorite quotes that I'd like to leave you with, but I'd also like to quote something else that was actually published in Tweed magazine in this summer and spring issue last year, and former Mayor Costin put in a little article on, the title was Oak Bay's Heart Beats in Its Library, which was just a lovely feature. And he noted a quote that Elizabeth Renzetti of the Globe and Mail, who referred to Maya Angelou, as saying that the library helps you to see that not only you are not alone, but that you're not really any different from anyone else. And I think the final thing that I'd like to say about that is I think this is all particularly relevant in an age of what we all know as alternative facts, and I think you can't get a better organization than the public library to help people separate fact from fiction. So that is the end of my formal presentation, and now I'm going to put it back the way I'm supposed to. Yes? Okay. And Paul and I would be happy to answer any questions, as would Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that, Ms. Sawa. Now, council questions, please. Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for the presentation. Excellent. Love the library. My kids practically live there. I do have the same question this year as I had last year, and I'm sure Councillor Murdoch will recognize the question, having to do with percent contribution for each member. Well, I know we have a formula that kind of fixed certain ratios in time. And I believe you said in your presentation the total increase this year across all members is 2.9%.
That's our budget increase.
Budget increase.
However, that's how we've increased the budget, yes.
However, the budget increase responsibility as a dollar figure is 10.2% for Oak Bay.
Yes, and I'm going to ask Paul to explain that in a succinct way, because I can explain it, but it's a little complicated.
Number one, I would love the explanation. Sure. I'm pretty sure it has to do with the formula.
Yes.
Really, the question is, when will we be addressing this formula at some point? That's question. So the first part of the question. Sure. The second part of the question is it possible to get some idea of the spread? If I presume the Oak Bay's contribution at 10.2% is higher, I'd love to know what some of the other spreads were as well.
Absolutely.
Not only at the percent, but also $67 per Oak Bay resident versus, say, a Victoria resident.
We've got that information, and in terms of the formula, that's something that is kind of renewed or reviewed with the library operating agreement. So the current library operating agreement was negotiated just a year ago, so it comes up for renewal, I think, in 2020, I think? 2020. It is comparable, though, to formulas in regional library systems in BC. So I think the model is a model that's been kind of in place for quite some time, but it's certainly up for review. And Paul can give you a good sense of the context, because we were expecting that question, so he's ready. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. McKinnon, thank you. If you could make sure you're close enough now. You're a little taller than Ms. Sawa.
Perfect.
And you'll need to be close to that microphone so the recording can pick you up. Thank you.
Perfect. So absolutely good question. We were anticipating this. So as you're aware of, the 2017 rate with Oak Bay was 6.43. The 2018 rate, we're at 6.88, and you're absolutely correct. And the difference is driven by higher assessments in the municipality of Oak Bay. And it's important to understand that's relative to the other municipalities, which I think is your perspective to understand that spread. Maureen is absolutely correct. It has to do with the LOA and the funding formula with the other municipalities. Obviously, your position relative to the other municipalities in terms of where you float. I've got some notes here around the other municipalities. Areas that saw increases were Oak Bay, Saanich, Victoria, View Royal, Central Saanich, Colwood, and Esquimalt. There was decreases in the Highlands, Langford, and Metchosin. While Highlands and Metchosin were small areas, I should point out the decrease for Langford was quite significant. And that is a combination of assessments in terms of tax value and population in those areas. And again, these are based on 2016 census results, of course being this the 2018 budget in terms of when this information was prepared. But it's always important to understand where Oak Bay's position is relative to the other municipalities. Some went up, some went down. To Maureen's perspective before, I believe the budget increase last year was 429,000 was the increase, and this year we're at 478. They are relatively tight. From a non-labor and labor perspective, our non-labor is relatively flat in terms of the operation. We are making do with less. We are actually making do in terms of opening another branch with less, if you want to use that perspective. The majority of that increase, as Maureen pointed out, is really related back to CUPE and negotiated salary rates within that. But again, going back to your original question, in that it is relative to Oak Bay's position relative to the other municipalities. And in terms of the percentages, if you'd like those, I can provide those, absolutely. We have all that.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Salko, please.
A brief follow-up. Thank you very much, Chair. So I know the Mayor of Langford has been quoted as saying he would like to be more like Oak Bay. I'm curious, relating to that question, what is the actual per capita total contribution, the per capita amount for this year's budget for Langford and also for Victoria, please?
Langford per capita is $45.72 with an increase of $4.42. And what was the other municipality? Victoria, $55.98 with a per capita increase of $1.36.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you very much. Councillor Braithwaite next, please.
Thanks. So I'm assuming then, since the assessments this year are a lot less in Oak Bay and a lot higher in the Western communities, that next year's budget will show that and they'll have a much higher increase than what we will.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I actually have a kind of a question in regards to, it's $107,580, which is our contribution increase. And when you look at it on our budget for Oak Bay, that's approximately half a percentage point of a tax increase for us, which is a lot. I mean, when you're looking at only increasing by 4 to 5% per year for taxes, a half a percent is 1/10 of that. So I worry that in the future, if we continue that, is that going to continue getting higher? And then how do we reconcile that with all of the other things that we have to do within our municipality? But I do love the library. I want to say that as well, so because I love reading.
Thank you for that. That is a fantastic question. One of my mandates coming on, I joined the Greater Victoria Public Library approximately 3 months ago. And one of the mandates that I was hired on with and that I've communicated to the board and the CEO, of course, is looking at any way that we can add efficiencies to the system for exactly those reasons. We're all faced with the same increases and the same cost constraints with regards to that. And because of the formula, there is a little recourse in terms of how that is spread amongst the municipalities. So any way that we can minimize that moving forward. So I've looked for things such as increasing the detail in our financial and our 5-year plan, and really driving down some of our overhead costs, things like that, which are already pretty tight, but fresh set of eyes from my perspective coming in and what I'm doing overall. So I definitely recognize that, and it's one of my key initiatives in our.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead, please, Councillor Kirby.
Thank you. As always, a pleasant experience having you guys here. So my question is regarding something I've just become aware of, the Center for Equitable Library Access, the CELA Library, and having family members that have dyslexia, I've learned that audiobooks are the only way for some of them, and that in order to access like more lengthy materials. And so I've realized that you guys have an extensive connection. I'm pretty sure that
Yes.
that is a major part of
Yes.
the collection.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And I've been aware that also that the public libraries through the schools, public school libraries
Yeah.
don't have the same access. And I'm just curious if you're partnering with the public schools for that kind of, to offer that kind of service. And is this something that we can cost share with the school boards?
I think it's something we can certainly explore. It sounded like CELA, the acronym for it is still relatively new, but GVPL was an early adopter in terms of signing on with it. So it was an initiative actually through the Canadian Urban Library Council that I'm on the executive with. We determined that there needed to be a much more accessible way for users to access materials rather than necessarily going through CNIB. So it's really every reader has the right to read materials in accessible formats, and what better conduit to that is directly through the public library. So we've got, again, one of the highest usage rates, in the country in terms of CELA. And I think the idea of in terms of how the school can access it, and Jennifer, I don't know if I think not yet, and we haven't been approached, but that doesn't, and of course any student in the school system is going to be able to access the public library. So that's something we can take back. And I haven't heard nationally that there's been a lot going on beyond the public library kind of interaction, but that doesn't mean that that's not the next big thing. Yeah, it is a wonderful service, though. Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
We've really appreciated
Good.
the resources.
Yeah.
And I have 2 home learners who are dyslexic, and
Yeah.
so the
Yeah.
accessibility issue is a real challenge for our family. And so I've found through Dyslexia BC that this is the next iteration.
Yeah.
And as the liaison to the School District 61, I will make sure to encourage them to make that connection.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
That'd
that
be great.
would be a nice
Yeah.
cost savings for both of you, I think. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay. Councillor Murdoch?
I don't really have a question, but I think I should probably just say, on behalf, as a rep for the library, just how much I appreciate you guys coming here. What wasn't said here today was that this was the first year under a new process. We used to do a preliminary budget in the fall, then we get final numbers, and we do a final budget in the spring, and that would come to our budgeting process. So this is our first time we've actually got it done this early. So it was a difficult process and an interesting one, but I was very pleased to see it come through.
Well said.
Lots of summer meetings in the finance committee
Yeah.
for that, and that's it. I also just wanted to. It's always good to plug services, and I was pleased to see that the building code, if you want the current building codes, you have to pay to have access. But of course, if you have a library card, you can access the building codes because the library has an account, and you can do it through that way. So one of many services that are available through the library that we often just aren't aware of. So thank you very much for coming out. It's always good to have the presentation. And it's odd being on this side of it for once, not on the...
No other questions? I'd entertain the motion.
I'll
as a-
make the motion that the base share of the 2018 operating budget for the Greater Victoria Public Library in the amount of $1,166,022 be approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. No discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thanks to
Thank
you, Ms. Sawa, and your staff, and thanks, Chair, and continued good fortune in the coming year. And
He's going to run now.
you're fortunate to have someone who's done so well as Chair to be at your right hand there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. We now have number 2, which are the council minutes, and I'm going to suggest that we do them in batches.
Your Worship, if it was okay with council, you could do those all at one time.
All at one time. It is, maybe I can just see if is there an issue with us doing them at one time? Is there some? Okay. So if I could have a motion to approve council, special council, committee of the whole, and public hearing meetings running from September the 11th to December the 18th. Moved?
Second.
Seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. I only have one remark tonight, and it's rather difficult, but Um, as we all know, there was just an unimaginable, heartbreaking tragedy in Oak Bay on December 25th. Words cannot describe the depth of our sorrow. A vigil was held 5 days later when our community came together to show our grief, our support for the family, and for each other. Heartfelt thanks to the community and to the organizers for putting this vigil together. Our most sincere thoughts go out to and remain with the family and friends through these very difficult times. Thank you. Next is the public participation period, please. We start and it's 7:34. We have 20 minutes to complete this. It's an opportunity for members of the public. Is there any members of the public here who wish to speak tonight? If so, I will set out the parameters. If this has to do with 1605 York Place, okay, thank you very much. I'm going to set out the parameters then. So we're going to ask you to state your name and the municipality and the topic of your remarks. We'd ask you to print your name and your municipality on the list there.
Okay.
And keep your remarks brief, not to exceed 3 minutes. Address all the remarks through me, please. And when I hear your name and I say welcome, I will start a little 3-minute timer. I can't tell you the noise this one makes because it's the first time I've used this one. So it says radar. So when you hear something that sounds like a radar, your 3 minutes is up, and at that point, please just wrap up, okay? And your name?
Yeah, it's Kate Jordan from Oak Bay.
Welcome.
Thank you. And yeah, I just wanted to give a word of praise for how the vigil was conducted. I think it was tastefully done and under horrific circumstances. And from the community, just wanted to say thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, next speaker, please. I see no further speakers. Thank you very much. We're now going to go on to, I've just got to restore my iPad to the right screen. There we go. Thank you. Just bear with me. Number 8, we've already done. And number 9, that is a request for early capital approval. In this case, it's the Fireman's Park retaining wall and dugout replacement. Here we have Mr. Herman, who did this report for us and is recommending that we approve the amounts of early approval, because we know until the budget is approved, all capital approvals have to be done through us. And that's a recommendation that we approve $47,000, with $17,000 of those funds coming from the Carnarvon Minor Baseball, and that it be granted to allow for the replacement of the retaining wall and dugouts at the lower diamond at Fireman's Park. Is there any questions for Mr. Herman? In that case, I'd
Move approval.
welcome a
Second.
motion, please. Thank you very much. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Go ahead, please. Councillor Zelko.
Thank you very much, Chair. I much appreciate the opportunity. My question, while I'm in favor of the motion and have no issues with it, my eye was drawn to this thing about an inappropriate activity, and I'm curious to know what that is to the amount that could be shared. Please.
Mr. Herman, I think you better pull that up a little bit because you're a little taller than the last speakers. Thank you.
And you may have to provide context for those in the audience.
Through the chair, the dugouts that are being dealt with are below grade. So from the street, people can crouch down and not be seen. So staff often find things like needles, condoms, what have you, empty liquor bottles in those dugouts, along with the fact that, as is noted, the drainage pipes have failed, so they're continually flooded at this time of year and things like that. So the standard nowadays is to have at-grade dugouts, and that's what will be done as part of this project.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Do we have a motion on the floor? Yes, thank you. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Herman. We move on to number 10, which is the request for early approval. Again, the same way that we do all of these capitals until we've finally approved the budget. We have a report there from the Director of Financial Services, Ms. Carter, who's here. There is a recommendation there that we approve 7 items: pavement management, storm manholes, curb drops, catch basins, fire hydrant replacements, replacement of water mains, and sewer manholes. Now, I haven't done the whole total, Ms. Carter. What does it all add up to? All right, $873 and 1,000. Okay, so there you go. Thank you very much. So, are there any questions for Ms. Carter? And some of this, I see Mr. Horan is here too. If he'd be, if there's any questions for him. Yep. Go ahead, Councillor Murdoch, please.
Through you, Chair, minor question. I noticed that the sewer manholes are new this year that weren't in place last year. Is that a different project? And I guess I would just ask the broader question of why that priority over some of the other things that are always pressing at this time of year in terms of potholes and other things that are happening.
Through you, Chair. The real reason is I can't speak to prior to last year, but last year I noticed that this wasn't on there and I wanted it to be. There's a group of capital works that are really appropriate for this time of year prior to the major summer construction period. So last year there was storm manholes but not sewer. So this year we just corrected the error to make sure that we had flexibility to do all the work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? In that case, I'd entertain a motion of approval, please.
I'll move the approval.
Second.
Okay. Those are those 7 listed items for the amounts set out. Thank you. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. We next move on to the Heritage Foundation, and this is a situation. Oh, go ahead.
Your Worship, just for the benefit of people watching, what we've done here with these previous items is actually approve capital expenditures in advance of the final budget being approved, right, which will probably be April or May. And the reason that staff want to do that is to ensure that we are able to get out early in the market, so that our competition with other municipalities and other providers, we hope, will be less. And at the end of the day, we will get better value and better costs for those projects. So that's just for the benefit of people watching. That's the reason why we're doing these in advance of the final budget being approved.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that, Mr. Jones. That's a good context. All right, so we move on to item 11. This is an offer from the Victoria Foundation to provide $1,298 to the Heritage Foundation, and it has to come through to the Oak Bay Heritage Foundation. And so the accounting is done properly. It has to come through us as a municipality before it goes back out to the Oak Bay Heritage Foundation. So this is a request that be allowed under the circumstances.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. And the last main item here that we have before we enter new business and resolutions is a report from our Deputy Director of Financial Services, Ms. Costin, who's here, answer any questions. And there is a recommendation here that we approve contracts, which are kind of an ongoing use of materials or purchase of materials in regards to backhoe rental, gravel supply, ready-mix concrete, and tandem truck rental. So are there any questions from Ms. Costin on this? Or Mr. Horan, I guess your crew will be using this, the materials, and using the contract truck too, and the backhoe. So he's here also to answer any questions. Are there any questions from either staff member? No, thank you very much. Then the recommendation from staff is to approve.
Move the recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. We move on to item 13, which is has a number of items. First of all is new business. Does anybody have any new business? Go ahead, Councillor Kirby.
Does that include verbal reports? Are we already there?
I think we can probably just lump them all together. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that there's no objection from other council members. I
I
have a
just-
short CRD report. I can do that afterwards.
All right. I have just a verbal report to provide regarding as the liaison to the School District 61. I approached them on January 1st and asked them to, if I could assist and encourage them to follow Oak Bay, Saanich, and Victoria's lead in endorsing the Bowker Creek Blueprint, the 100-year plan, because they have a substantial amount of the creek on their property. They've obviously done incredible upgrades to the Oak Bay High site, but the Richmond school site has had no upgrades and is substantially overgrown with invasives such as the blackberry and willow. So if in future a project like Oak Bay High replacement comes along and they've endorsed the 100-year plan, they would be in a better position to seek grant funding and understand that there's partnerships and grant opportunities available to them to get that work done. So it's a no-cost initiative to the school district, but it would show that they had some commitment, and it would make the staff and the board informed on the 100-year plan. So I encourage them to participate, and they have taken it up. So they will be, several trustees have been in touch and are enthusiastically pursuing the initiative. So we should hopefully see that happen in 2018.
That's great news. Thank you very much. Great news for the environment. I mean, the step that we took in improving that creek when the school was built is phenomenal. It really is. So, any other reports? All right, or verbal reports? Okay, so you may recall that the last meeting, I had planned to make the announcement of who were going to be appointed to the Mayor's Task Force on Public Engagement. But I was awaiting, and some of the people were away, and I was just awaiting confirmation. So it is my pleasure tonight to announce that the following will be members of that committee. Councillor Zelka has agreed to continue. Councillor Kirby will be on there, and Councillor Ney will chair it. In terms of residents / citizens, we are very pleased to be joined. The councillors will be joined by Naomi Pope, Andrew Appleton, Esther Patterson, who's here tonight, and Jan Mears will continue. And I thank those residents for giving of their time and their input. The mandate of the task force at this point is to organize and hold the community forums that council has discussed on previous occasions, and then present a final report, hopefully early in the spring, the early spring. So thank you very much to those people who've agreed to serve. Thank you. Mr. Jones, does that require a motion of council because it's a task force, Mayor's Task Force?
Your Worship, it doesn't require a motion, but it's if it's the pleasure of council to endorse that, certainly something you may do.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to that effect.
We'll make the motion.
Okay.
And I would second.
Move and second it. All right. Discussion. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how these names were chosen. Was it just you that chose these names, or because I don't remember any applications going out
No.
for people to come onto this task force?
Well, it started as a task force, and I have the mandate when appointing task force to name these people because it was a very short turnaround because we wanted to get things done in February and hope for March at the latest. I also consulted with Councillor Ney and Councillor Zelka in terms of some of these names, and so that was the process. Go ahead.
Just to follow up, I guess I have difficulty with this because I'm not really feeling that we need a task force to find out whether or not we need this to have community consultation, because I think we've already been told by the community that we need community consultation. So I have a little bit of difficulty with it, not of the people whose names have been put forward, but just in principle. So I will be voting against the motion only because I don't agree that this is what we should be doing.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Murdoch, please.
I guess a couple of quick things. One, I think I'd rather this just be appointed by the mayor on this one. One reason is that there's another person who's given me their name out of interest in joining us. If this requires a motion from council to appoint it, then it would require another motion to council in 2 weeks' time to do it. That seems kind of silly, and I think that if we're making a motion, we do this formally as legislative body when we've met as council and talked about it in camera. We can't do that. We have names on the table in front of us here. I don't, from a process perspective, this feels kind of wrong to be having this conversation here. So I would feel better if we just, this motion went off the table and we just left it as it was, which is the mayor's assigned task force, personally.
Just on that point, Mr. Jones, I know there's certainly have had one or two names, and Councillor Murdoch spoke to me about one of those names today. If in the future we identify others who are ready, willing, and able to serve, I could, as part of, again, because it's a mayor's task force, use my discretion to appoint those people also. Is that correct?
Your Worship, you could. I would suggest, however, though, if you're appointing these members by resolution, that it might be more appropriate if there was another member that you do that by resolution. The other option would be that you appoint these members and with an accompanying part of the resolution allowing the mayor to appoint others should he see fit.
Okay. So what we could do is we could add a rider to that motion, so we can amend it by adding and the mayor be allowed to appoint further participants in consultation with the chair of the committee. Okay. Does anyone wish to make that amendment?
I would amend my motion to suggest that.
Is there a seconder? I'll second. Okay, seconder. Now, the amendment, which would give me the discretion to appoint in consultation with Councillor Ney, should other people come forward and show interest and have time. I mean, that's part of the big reason, and particular ability. So, speaking to that motion, please. Okay.
I don't. Thank you, Chair. I'm just finding this awkward because I just procedurally, if we're appointing as a committee of council, normally we would have that discussion as to who it is, and this is just sort of, we seem to be merging two different things. One is just people being appointed by the mayor, which is fine. I just, I'm having a hard time. So do we voting against the people here, or are we voting against the thing that it's a mayor's thing? So I find it's a little conflated. I feel like I don't want to vote for this because it's a thing. I'd rather it just be taken back, frankly.
Okay. So we're on the amendment now, though. Okay. So, speaking to the amendment. Okay, no further speakers on the amendment. I call the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Braithwaite opposed. Thank you. Now, on the main motion, which appoints these people and allows discretion to appoint more after consultation with the chair. Go ahead, Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I am leaning towards agreeing in general with Councillor Murdoch, that this feels a bit messy. The mayor already has the authorization to appoint a task force.
Yep.
Doesn't need approval or assent of council. So I move to table indefinitely.
All right.
The motion.
Second?
Okay. What would happen, Mr. Jones, what would happen in the interim then? Because I'd like this committee to get going. If they're going to complete their business by the end of February or March, and there's quite a lot of, and now that there's a lot of people on it, there's greater logistic issues to getting everyone together. If this is tabled, does that allow me to act in the interim?
Your Worship, you would have the authority to establish that task force. If the council chose to table this motion indefinitely, that does not restrict the mayor from establishing that task force with members as you see fit.
Okay, because I just don't want to wait until later on this month before we get back to it, or in February. By that time, I hope there's already a lot of work done. So this is a good way perhaps to compromise and give me back the power, which I was going to do in any event until we heard from you, Mr. Jones.
Sorry about that.
But that's okay. I think we've resolved it already. So there's a tabling motion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed to table. Thank you very much. All right. Well, we got it done in a roundabout fashion, so thank you, everybody, for that. No other verbal reports. I have a very quick update, and it's already been circulated. Excuse me. This is as the Capital Regional representative. I circulated a media release which came out on the 5th to do with, appears at this point, we have a mediated solution to the regional growth strategy. Now it's going to go to the CRD and to the constituent memberships of the CRD. But if it's going to be accepted, I think it's a big step forward. I think it shows that the CRD, when we all sit together at the same table and have an open and frank dialogue, we can come to a good resolution. So we still have to hope that everyone at the table at the mediation and their constituent body or their municipality will approve it. So if it does, we'll be going ahead with this and avoid the adversarial process that would follow the next step, which would be an arbitration. So I know I informed you about that before, and really what I think was the key to this was the work of the staff, who happens to be the senior planner there, was an Oak Bay resident, Sina Bay, and her staff did a wonderful job narrowing the issues and looking at options which where we could find agreement, which we did. So keep our fingers crossed that it continues to go in the right direction. Those are all the reports. Any other reports people have thought about? Oh, Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Sorry, I just thought I would mention that I'm looking at dates for the Yes Awards coming up in May, and there'll be opportunities for residents and schools to put names forward for the awards shortly.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Croft, please.
Thank you. I'd just like to draw public's attention to the South Island Prosperity Project. Again, everyone is invited to attend either online or not a webinar on Canada's Smart Cities Challenge. We're involved in that here in Victoria, in the South Island. The webinar takes place on January 10th from 1 to 2, and you can register at South Island Prosperity website.
Thank you very much, Councillor Zalka. I guess when I brought up the CRD, that's kind of tickled people's memory, I guess, and that's great. Councillor Zalka.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just wanted to thank my colleagues for their patience, and I'm pleased to be back for my leave. Very much appreciate your patience with me. Thank you.
And we welcome you back. Great to have you back. Thank you. Do you want to second that motion or have a debate?
I do want to second that motion. Welcome back, Eric. Just know something related to the CRD actually. So, one of the things that was raised here today at the library was that issue of our cost allocation coming at a 50% of population, 50% of assessments, and our assessments going up so dramatically, having that impact. So, if you look at the 2.9% that resulted in a 10.2% increase for Oak Bay, we had the discussion at the library board. That we understand that the flexibilities happen, but that's tied to our library operating agreement, and that may not be tenable in the long term, frankly, if that keeps going up, because we can't absorb a 1% of our entire budget going to, or 0.5% every year to just library increases. So that conversation's underway. It's as you know, it doesn't expire until 2020, and it's a difficult conversation to have, but it's the same conversation at the CRD. I don't know. It scares me, frankly, this year. If that 2.9% results in a 10.2%, we're looking at I think the last one was a 4.8% increase, and that's going to result in whatever that's going to work out to a 25% increase or something to Oak Bay. That makes up a huge portion of people's tax bills, obviously. So I guess I just throw it out there that I guess warn us that that's going to be coming down the pipe, but also maybe put it in the ear if that ever comes up again. I'm not sure how often that comes up at the CRD as a discussion, but it's going to be one of those ones that's going to have a pretty big impact on us as a community soon.
Yeah. And there is one small area we're starting to chip away at, and that was, you may remember we had the discussion about Arts Commission and allocation of funding sources, how they come in, the money comes in, and how the money goes out. And that's I appreciate a very small portion of the overall budget. I know the same issue has been raised in Saanich on the issue of the arts and how they arrive at that formula. So I'll keep a very watchful eye as we go through on that. I got my tax assessment, or no, my house assessment the other day, and last year I'd gone up 25%. This year it's only 10 or 12. So and it appears certainly when you look at the large numbers that they're reversal now, and I think someone pointed it out here, that it's now more of the Western communities that outstrip us in terms of that. So that's a small silver lining on that cloud. So, but you're right. Anyways, okay. So we're now going to move on to item number 14, which is the item we added, the development variance permit application, 1605 York Place. This is just to remind people where we're at with this. The rezoning and the heritage designation of the property has already been addressed. The variation application has already been considered by our advisory bodies and by the committee of the whole. And following that, the public notice was given, and about the variation was undertaken. So once the motion is put on the floor, I'm going to ask if any members of the public, including the applicant, wish to speak to this, and then at that point we will make a decision and have a discussion up here. All right. So what we need first of all is a motion.
I'll make the motion.
That we issue that the permit. Thank you very much. So now, and it's seconded. So now it's live. First of all, is the applicant here? Yes, thank you. Are there members of the public who wish to address us on this issue? All right. And okay, no members of the public wish to address us. Thank you very much. And then typically, once we've heard from the public, I'll ask the applicant if there's any reply. Under the circumstances, I think we'll skip that. And now we bring it back to council, unless there's something you want to say. I think council has dealt with a number of times. I certainly, we know the issues at this table, and we had it at the committee of the whole. So now, discussions at council. Any comments? Seeing no speakers, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. So thank you very much, and all the best with the project. Thank you.
Move adjournment.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much.